Elizabeth, I'm C.
Megan, I'm B.
Austin, I'm D. And Callie, I'm A.
So those laws. Exciting laws. Oh, we could talk about the programs, because that's what the laws say we have to have anyway. I didn't realize there was those little notes at the bottom of the PowerPoint. But this page in here has all of the different programs, 168. And there's only 3 that are, the result is positive.
3 laws.
3 different programs. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 different types of programs listed here, and only 3 of them have positive results, which was interesting. So like the things that we do now in Bellingham, have an ELL specialist and pull out and can have a positive effect, but this says that most of the time it's doesn't really help them as they get older. They drop out and are not successful as they get into the harder grades.
So what are the 3 positive outcomes?
The one is like the immersion stuff, so like the dual language, so you're getting taught in both languages. I mean, obviously that's going to be more beneficial. And then, then the other one is essentially the same thing, but you're just taught content. Then English isn't introduced until 2nd grade. It's basically the same thing. And then the other one.
So like you learn in your native language for 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other one is just, I think this is kind of what they do at Allen, where they receive instruction in both languages, but they're still pulled out for it. So they're the only ones receiving the dual language. So they become bilingual. The ELL students do, but then the English-speaking students don't really benefit from it.
At that point, why not just do the whole classroom?
Yeah.
It's not like it's going to hurt the English-speaking students.
I know.
But those 3 really don't help students coming in at like 6th grade or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Well, and so then one of the ones that we had to write about was the newcomer program, which wasn't in here. And that one's kind of like what you were just saying, like a 6th grader, brand new. And they just kind of provide them some basics.
Yeah, it didn't really seem like they were going above and beyond to help the students.
Yeah. Like, there's like so much, like that they like don't know. Like how are they gonna like bring them up to speed? Like it's gonna take years.
Mm-hmm. By the time they're up to speed, they're gonna be like graduation age. No, especially if they didn't have a strong education in their first language.
Yeah, I feel like some of these programs were just addressing that there was a problem, but like the program itself didn't do anything. It was more like, yeah, sure, have your kid come here. We do have a program, even though the program is them sitting in the classroom doing nothing.
Yeah. Well, and then like what we do in Bellingham, they get exited so fast. So as soon as they reach a certain level of proficiency on their WELPA, then they don't get any services.
That's what I was like. Like because I feel like even though they've reached that proficiency, like at that time they're at the proficiency, but like once they're back in the mainstream classroom full time, like how are they going to support to keep them at that proficiency?
And if they've been, in that program since kindergarten, sometimes they're exited by like 2nd grade, and then they get into the intermediate grades, and they can't maintain being at grade level.
Yeah.
Unless they get a lot of they need that support. And our ELL, we don't have hardly any ELL students, but she'll still come and do like some trainings for teachers, and she's really awesome. Like she doesn't really have to do that, but at least that way we're kind of getting some support to help the students.
Well, it's almost better to prepare you before you get ELL students than after.
You're thrown into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then the they don't really call it that on this list, but the immersion one's on the video, where you get it in both half day of one language, half day of the other language. The one thing that I was really surprised by was all of the people that were not native English speakers that were upset
Yeah, I was so
with the they wanted more English.
Really. This and I was like, what? Like, you think that they would be supportive of it so that they could keep those connections to their culture and who they are instead of like.
I feel like a lot of people who do like bring their kids here don't want them.
Cause
Like they bring them here
for the
American
better.
culture.
Mhm.
Like they don't bring them here for Spanish
Yeah.
culture and Spanish schools or like whatever their culture is. They bring them here to be in American schools and living American culture because they think like that's what's better.
What needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's gonna make them successful.
Yeah.
Which is so sad.
It is, because really they just need to be, I feel like, just more educated about the results of completely getting rid
Yeah.
of your, culture, your original culture. There was that one little girl who, she was in an immersion school, but her parents had lost their Chinese,
And
So-
then she could communicate with her.
and she was the only one that could communicate with the ground, which I think is super common, because those people that were in that generation were in one of those time periods where you had schools and everybody said like, no English, no English, no English, or only English, not and then they can't communicate with their own family.
So sad.
Mm-hmm. So weird.
I can't imagine not being able to talk with my grandma every day.
Yeah.
I talk to her every week, like.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I Google searched immersion schools in Washington, and a lot of them are like, there's actually quite a few. It's by county, and there's some that are time split 50-50, but then there's one that's like number of periods, and it's one period. It's like, okay, that's just having a Spanish
Yeah.
class.
Yeah,
That's not
like,
doing
that's
anything
not a-
different. I mean, there's some that are 4 periods, but then it makes me wonder if is there just 4 periods offered, or
Or
is
the
it
class is language and social studies. Where it's one period, the class is language arts and social studies.
yeah.
So it's
But is that really considered a immersion school? Like, I feel like that's just having a language class.
yeah, but it's not the language
It's
class.
kind
You
of
have to
maybe
take
like
Spanish to do
Undergraduate
it, but it's
studies, whatever.
Yeah.
language arts and social studies. So
Although
it's
maybe
not,
it's
well,
taught.
I'm sure it's like a block class.
Yeah.
So it's probably like half their day.
Like 80.
Because you know how like there's a bunch of schools and it's like they'll have 8 classes, but they'll do 4 one day.
That's
the
how
next
I
day,
understand,
4
it's like
one day.
80-minute classes, so still, it's,
I mean, I'm sure it's like half
only
their
like
day.
a third.
yeah.
Because like ours was like 6 periods, but we only had 3 each day, so like they were like an hour and a half day.
Yeah.
But it's still not like.
Half of your
Because,
entire day.
yeah, because then like you're only getting it every other day, so,
Oh, right.
you know.
Where are most of them down by Seattle?
There's a lot in Seattle. There's there's some in Spokane. It's interesting. A few of these just go up to kindergarten, which I feel like.
what?
Oh, like an immersion preschool.
So like.
No, it says it's an elementary school.
Like an immersion kindergarten.
Oh,
Like,
so.
Just
Just-
kindergarten?
Yeah.
So then
Like
the
kindergarten and
students
fifth
that
grade.
come,
Yeah,
like,
there's 5th grade and there's kindergarten, and then these are different schools. And then you have 8th grade,
Well,
9th
I'm
grade.
sure it's based off of just the subject of or like whatever grade the teacher is. Because like you can't, I mean, I don't speak Spanish, I can't teach an immersion classroom.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well.
So like if you have a Spanish speaking teacher, kindergarten, 5th grade, okay, those are the subjects where
Yeah.
or those are the grades, like.
Well,
There's
the-
only like a split time, like teacher, you know, like you job share kind of, like.
Mhm.
There's a few in Mount Vernon. One in planning stage.
The, wait, in that video, the guy, that professor, it was San Francisco that they, and once he made said, okay, this is what we wanna do, we want everyone to be bilingual, then I'm sure that's when they started hiring more people. Because, you can't do it unless you have bilingual people.
It doesn't say what school, but there is one in the planning stages in Whatcom County.
It's an elementary
It's an elementary school.
It could just be,
It's probably.
no, cause that's Skagit.
Oh, yeah.
But with us, all the IB stuff that Bellingham's doing now, that could be considered immersion.
Yeah.
If it doesn't have to be like, what is the requirement to be called immersion? It must not be much.
No, I don't think so at all.
Because they're getting exposure to another language, but you're not immersed in it.
Oh, there's one
You're not getting taught in that language.
in Yakima. There's one. The highest grade is 12th grade.
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's
I'm
probably,
sure there's some in Eastern Washington.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it's hard to have an immersion program when you don't have teachers who speak Spanish.
Yeah, well, that's why
And speak
San
fluent
Francisco,
Spanish.
they had to like
Yeah.
commit to spending money on it,
Yeah.
you know, spending money on the hiring the teachers and.
Well, because you have to hire teachers, but you have to still hire qualified teachers. But then what do you do with like the teachers you already have? You can't just like lay off teachers to like, I don't know, like I feel like.
Well, you would just need to hire teachers who
You
are
hire, like,
bilingual, and then the
yeah.
other ones can, they don't all have to be bilingual.
Yeah, but if you want an immersion school, they kind of do.
But
Yeah.
like you could,
If you want an immersion school, you have to have.
Half their day
Half the
though
day's
is taught
not.
in English, so they
so
can
those
just.
teachers could teach that.
But that's also twice as many teachers on the
Yeah, you have
payroll.
twice as many teachers on the payroll, so like that's not realistic, so you would just have all bilingual teachers. So then they can teach in one language in the morning.
Well, I thought it was interesting in the video how the one Chinese teacher said that she doesn't speak any English with her kids because she doesn't want them to know that she can speak English.
Oh,
Otherwise, they're just gonna want her to talk in English with them.
Yeah.
So it was like, cause they'd be like, "Can you say hi?"
Can you
And
say hi?
and she'd be like, "Hi."
And they're like, you can speak
And
Spanish.
Yeah, they get all
And they were like
excited.
trying to like teach her English because they didn't think she knew
Yeah.
And they
English.
try to catch her.
Uh-huh.
They'd be like, so she like had to be very careful whenever she was at school not to speak English
Yeah.
in front of them, like.
Which is smart, right?
It's like smart too to like get them to
Yeah.
like make that distinction.
Yeah.
They were like kindergartners though, and then
Yeah.
the other kindergarten class, they just, it was like the day one, and the lady's talking to them in Chinese, like, bring your backpack over here and put your snack up on the shelf, like where to put
Yeah.
their stuff, and they're just staring at her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh my
But she was so nice, and so
Yeah.
eventually they come,
Yeah,
and
and she
hand over their bag, and they're just
Like,
looking
alright,
at her like, yeah.
God. And like he had this like little bag with his lunch, and he was like,
And then she's like, okay, go sit back down, and he's just
Yeah,
like, okay. I guess I'll go back over where everybody else is.
And
It's
then,
really cute.
And that's how it was in my Spanish class in high school though. Like she'd speak to us the first day all in Spanish and be like, and then she'd like start like by the end of it, she's practically talking in English to us because none of us
Yeah.
understood it. She was not the best teacher, and so none
Yeah.
of us understood. She just got frustrated.
I never
Yeah, you
even
can't
had
get frustrated.
My Spanish classes weren't even immersion. It was just like, I'm gonna speak English, and then here's like a book you can read. And say,
Yeah.
oh, that's weird.
Yeah, that's
I
how
mean,
my
my
high
teachers
school
did not teach in
Spanish.
Spanish. They
No.
spoke in
Really?
English
Mhm.
and then just
Oh.
taught you Spanish.
That's how mine
My
was too.
second and
It was
third
definitely
year
not
was
immersion.
all in Spanish. Like, I was like really nervous going into like my first day of my second year because I knew our teacher only spoke in Spanish, and
Same.
so I was like, all right, Senor Miller.
Would they like do what like that teacher in the video did too, like stick to it? If you had like a question after class or something, would they make you do everything in Spanish?
He like mostly did everything in Spanish. He would get sidetracked and tell us like personal stories about
Yeah.
himself in English, like about him like dirt biking and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, Senor. Like,
Yeah.
My teacher, like, he would ask us questions in Spanish, and if you still, like, didn't know it, he would, like, make you eventually answer it, and so you're sitting there, like, help me, and, yeah, but, I mean, it helped, so, he was probably, like, my best teacher overall from high school, so, obviously does something.
Yeah, I know. I see him like today because like he was at the high school where my parents teach, and he's like, "Oh, I want to come," and he's like,
Yeah.
I'm like, "Senor."
Yeah. If I go
It's been 3 years.
Yeah. If I go into my teacher's classroom, he'll make me stand in front of the class and like talk to his class he has now. So I'm like, I'm very afraid to go visit him. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna go in there.
Yeah, because that's my class was like you were saying, and I just don't know anything.
I
can't
know
count
anything.
Spanish.
I mean, I only took 2 years, and it was like my freshman, sophomore year of high school, so that's like 8 years
Yeah.
ago. So like,
So it's obviously
that wasn't
it's gone.
9 years ago.
Yeah. Wow.
And then we like our big project was to make a video, like a skit.
Oh, we didn't
Yeah.
have to do
That's
that.
what we
We,
did.
like our big project was like we had to make a book, but it was like pictures, and then you like say what the pictures of.
You can like Google Translate that.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
that's what we all did.
It's like not helping you learn it at all.
Did you
No.
ever do like
Like you had to
oral
write like it was like a
presentations?
picture of like your brother, and you write this is my brother. Under the
We did a few oral
Like
presentations.
one, I
We
think,
did one.
short one.
I just like memorize.
Yeah.
Oral. I just nope.
We did
do, like,
one
kind
oral
of-
presentation, and it was you had to stand up in front of the class, and she would just ask you a random question, and you had to answer the question, and you could sit down.
Yeah,
That's it. And I answered the question wrong, and I still got 100. But like she said, like what color is your coat
No.
or something like that, and I said he's black and white.
Yeah.
Like I still remember because I was like, oh. I don't know.
Our Spanish teacher would sing songs. She was also the cheer coach. Very like animated person, like very, very good person, just was not the best teacher. And so she'd sing songs. Well, she'd think that like as we said the words we'd understand. First of all, we didn't know what the words said, and like I sing English songs and I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just like, yeah, do the same thing in Spanish. And so I'd just be humming around like a Spanish song. She's like, oh, do you know what that means? And I'm like, it's about a cat. And she'd be like, no, it's about like a love story of like two like people, you know, like it's some like deep thing. And I'm like, yeah, no, I thought it was about mentions a cat at one point.
We
So
always
it's not
sang
effective.
Enrique Iglesias.
Yes, she like loved him. She like
Yeah, my
my
Spanish teacher did too. It was like Fridays, we would have Fiesta Fridays. And we would like listen to a song, and you would have like the English version and then like the Spanish version. And they would both have like blank spaces in like different spots throughout the song, so you'd have to like listen to it in Spanish and then like fill in the Spanish words and then be able to like fill in the English words from the Spanish.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that was cool, but it's like I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
And then the corazon means love because, or like heart or something, right?
Yeah.
Because all of the songs had corazon.
Yeah.
And so I took it Spanish in 6th grade, 7th and 8th in my middle school, and I just remember they had us memorize like the Our Father in Spanish, and so they would like test us on it. Like each week we'd have to have some part of it memorized. Yeah,
What is it?
the Our Father, the prayer.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know
Yeah.
what Spanish means. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you go to a private school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
That's the other reason I was
Yeah. Yeah. And like what? Yeah.
Well, it's funny because that, I thought that was like the biggest point that professor made in the video, which I had thought about before, but then he like said it again, how it's just like how stupid it is that we spend so much energy saying small children should only speak English, like get rid of your other language, and then they get older and we spend all this money and time and effort trying to get adults to learn another language.
Yeah.
And it's so backwards, you know?
Yeah.
And people are just so afraid that, oh, you're going to become Chinese if you learn how to speak Chinese or whatever. Like, they're going to lose who they are, you know. It's kind of, I mean, my dad has that attitude, like, why can't they just speak English?
Yeah.
Because they don't, you know? Like, it's okay. They're not any less American than the rest of us just because they can't speak English.
That's how my grandpa is in West Virginia. He's very much like, this is America. But then it's really interesting because I was taking Spanish class. You know, we were at the restaurant or whatever, went to a Mexican restaurant, and he's like, oh, well, can't you speak to them? I'm like, well, I'm in America, is it okay if I speak it?
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting how he, like, wanted it, yet he didn't want to admit it almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and even the government, like, tries to kind of, they don't help, you know, with dual language when they're little, but then they train their military officials to be bilingual, and after 9/11, they realized, you know, like, oh, we can't understand anything, and all these other languages around the world, like, and we're getting attacked, so we better start figuring this out.
And with like jobs too, like there's a lot of people that travel, and it's like how you obviously you need to communicate with.
Yeah, I had a parent a couple years ago that owned like a lumber company, and he would travel to China and Japan and sell his lumber, and it's like, yeah, you have to be able
You
to.
can't just go
Yeah.
Longer around the world.
Yeah, well, he was very wealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. And then the minute I started watching that video, I was like, Luke, where is the immersion school? Like, that's where she's gonna go to school. I want to put her in immersion school. Like, I don't care what language it is. Like, it's just so cool.
Hey, I'm coming to Bellingham.
Oh,
Keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Let me get a school near you.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that they could like read and write in another language at such a young age is just, it's awesome. It's so cool.
My cousins lived in Italy for a few years, and they are anywhere from like, now that they've moved back, they're like between like 3rd and like senior year of high school, but so they lived there for like, for 3 years before. And so they were like, the youngest one was like kindergarten to 2nd grade in Italy, and when they came back, and they went to Italian schools, they're like, because their dad worked for Boeing, so it's like, you could go to an American school or you could go to an Italian school. So we went to an Italian school, and my cousin, who's the youngest, who started school there, could speak English. He's fluent in Italian, but like when he came back, he couldn't read or write in English at all.
Yeah.
So, like he could read and write in Italian. Yeah. Like his first language is English.
Yeah.
Because he started school there.
Yeah.
He couldn't read or write English at all.
Yeah. And then was it easy for him?
When he came back, yeah, because I think he was in like, I think it was like third grade or like halfway through second grade or something that he came back. So he like picked it up really quick because he was still really young.
Yeah.
But
And he could read it. He could already read.
Yeah.
he
Like
could
that
already read. He just
foundation
could
in
read
the
in
language.
Italian.
Mm-hmm.
It was really weird.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and because then there was another, that reminds me of that, there was another family in the video where the dad never went to school, had never gone to school, and so his son, was in this immersion program, and then, all the way through, I think in the end they said he went to, that was the other kid, one of the kids went to college, the older one.
Yeah.
But
He was graduating from like 5th grade or something.
Yeah.
He was like crying because he was like so proud.
Yeah, because
he had
there's
never gone through himself. Like,
not even in his first language, like just no school at all, and then your son has all these opportunities. Yeah. If they're in a program like that, but most of them, are in some of these other ones that it's like the dropout rate is really high, or they're not successful, they're like in the lowest 25th percentile of their class by the time they graduate, if they graduate. Yeah. There's not very many. I wonder, then there's all those states now that have the English only laws.
That's
so stupid.
Makes sense. And it's like more recent that they have started doing that.
Which is crazy because like the bilingual thing or multilingual things.
More prevalent than ever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the rest of the world is bilingual.
Right.
If we
We're,
keep
like,
on this monolingual path, we're gonna be, we
Not be
can't,
able to talk to anybody.
no, and we can't figure out why we can't compete with the global market and our school systems can't compete, and it's like, well, maybe that's a big part of it, because all the rest of the world can speak at least 2 languages, if not more than that.
Well, and it talks about how like it expands your brain capacity. So if we just focus on, I'm sorry, but as far as languages, English language is not exactly the best language in the world at all. And so focusing on just like this crappy language, it's like then you suck because theirs is better. Like that's terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and if you live in another country, you can speak English, so you can speak whatever language your country speaks, and then you can also speak English. But we seem to think that doesn't. We don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Everyone just needs to speak English.
Well, I hate to say it, but
Always.
like that's part of the reason why when Americans go to different languages and like sitting there trying to commute, they're like, what, like fruit or whatever. That's why we look like idiots, is because we don't have that interaction at all.
Yeah, it's so hard for us to understand people who are speaking English, but they have like an accent because because we're so used to just one. Our brain only knows one language.
And then there was the sped.
Oh, that's right.
Which,
about that too.
Which I thought a lot of them, you were talking about how like a lot of students just get pushed into that whether they're ELL or not, but I just thought it was like really sad that like we jumped to conclusion, there we go. About just because an ELL student, like a student can't, like not even just because it's an ELL student, but it's just because a student can't immediately like speak back to you if they must have a problem. It's like, no, like it took me like 10 minutes to respond to someone's question, like even now.
English.
Or even like if they don't like perform well on standardized tests, they're like get considered. It's like what? Like I'm sorry, this kid's not a genius. But like,
well, there's so many other
they have
factors.
special needs.
I think part of it, class sizes since I've been teaching have always been kind of the same. Like the lowest I've ever had was 24, and it was 24 for a long time, and now it's like 26, 28. But I think for a long time class sizes were like down in the teens, and so then you could provide such individualized instruction, and as class sizes have gotten higher and higher and higher, people are a lot faster to, you have so many kids, so the one kid that you can't handle or isn't learning or can't focus, it's It is
Yeah,
sad.
like I know like even at the high school, like my mom teaches like a financial literacy class, which is like the like third year math for kids that like just need it to graduate, which is like really practical because it's like learning about banking and loans and like all that stuff. But like some of the algebra 2 teachers just like if they're like they after they take their first exam, they look at the kids that don't do well and just dump them in my mom's class, and she's like, okay, well just because they didn't do well on that first math exam, like you know, like they can still, if you give them that attention, like do well, like, and like so obviously she like takes them in and like does that sort of thing, but it's like you can't just jump to those conclusions, like those kids like are able to, you know.
Yeah.
And that's where they lose their confidence too,
Yeah.
because they're like, oh, okay, I'm just stupid, like, you don't believe in me.
Well, and teachers are just got so thin that like if a student does, whether they're special ed or not, or ELL, like having to like stay after class and work with them even more, like when it's their lunch hour or something like that, like that's hard for them. When in their mindset they could be thinking, well, even if they aren't, maybe they will get special attention. I can't provide them 100%.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you don't have any support people.
Yeah.
There's no, you know, aides or anybody. You know, my mom, I remember, granted, she taught at a low-income school, so she probably had extra funding, but she always had somebody, like an aide, for years until closer to the end of her career, and then, like, funding was being cut, and so they started taking those people away. But for a long time, teachers had an extra person to just help you with whatever.
Or even just like parent volunteer,
Mm-hmm.
which now like parents, like I mean my mom struggled with having to take time off to come into my classroom.
Yeah.
I mean it was required at my school, but yeah.
It depends.
Which actually, she's a coworker who just moved to Olympia from Bellingham, and she's now going to my old elementary school. And she's like, I used to be the only parent volunteer, like every once a week or whatever, and now there's like a long line for like Olympia, like, oh yeah, we want to volunteer or whatever. But she's like, yeah, at Bellingham, there's like no one can take the time off, and she's
Yeah.
like, and so she's like, granted, my kids were the only white kids, but you know, I was gonna be in there trying to help them.
Yeah.
So
No, it depends on your school. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think I had like 17 parent volunteers or something crazy,
Oh
which is
my
almost too many. It
Yeah.
depends on this group of parents is great. They can come in and take charge and they do whatever they need to do, but sometimes they're quite awkward and need you to like hold their hand, and then it's almost more work,
Like
you
for
know.
the teacher, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, when I was like volunteering in a class, there was like this parent that like was always like interrupting the teacher, and I was like, okay, like to me see if she's trying to do something right now. She just asked you to, you know, just like go like, you know, die cut 3 letters like for the bulletin board.
Yeah, some of them don't really understand. Or I think they
There's
are.
like no parent volunteers like at the elementary school.
yeah.
You volunteer to like chaperone the day, so you
Yeah.
don't like volunteer to like help in the class.
But the classrooms still have just as many students.
Which is weird to me, like
That is weird.
like it was brought up in one of my other classes this quarter, and it's like I never thought about that. That is really weird.
I've always had that talk with my parents because like I want to teach elementary in their high school, and it's just so weird to me. Like, I will have that. Like,
But I also feel like parents, maybe like moms, like our stay-at-home moms, will take more time off when their kids
When
are in
their kids are
elementary
young.
school.
Yeah.
They're like young. And it's
Yeah.
like, you get that time back.
Yeah.
And then once they're teenagers, it's like, oh, whatever, they're fine.
Well, and also teenagers don't want anything to really do with their
Their
parents.
parents
No.
are they're like, don't
Like in
come to
elementary
school.
school, you're like, that's right, my mom's here.
Yeah.
Whereas in middle school, you're like, mom, park's a few blocks away.
Yeah. Because it gets gradually less even as they get up in elementary
Yeah.
grades.
Yeah.
And like I had one mom even said this year what you were just saying. She's like, well, I figure I better come in while he still wants me here.
Yeah.
You know, and like it still gives her a hug and everything. Yeah. Yeah.
Which maybe if there was more parent interaction in middle school, like wouldn't
wouldn't
be
be
so,
so-
yeah, exactly.
Because like when your parents the only one coming to middle school, it's like really awkward. But like if
It sounds
like a whole bunch
Yeah.
of parents would come, like it wouldn't
Yeah.
be like, oh yeah, oh there's your mom, like
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Well, and like 6th graders, they're not that old. They're
No.
still, you know, little kids.
Yeah.
So it would be helpful, you know.
Doing a guided teacher walk in middle school, and both of our teachers have daughters there. And like both of their daughters, when they see some like run up and give them hugs, and they're like in 6th and 7th grade.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Which I feel like these days, middle schoolers, 6th graders, 7th graders are all getting treated like they're high schoolers.
Yeah.
It's like, no, they're like 14.
Yeah.
Like,
or they're like 11.
Yeah.
Like
Like,
6th graders are
12,
like this tall, or
yeah.
like 10 or 11.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, they're not-
They're little.
Yeah, I know, there's so much, that reminded me, we just learned at our staff meeting, because we've been talking about homework, for years, and change our homework policy, like make it less and less and less and less, because all the research shows that actually it has a negative effect on their learning. And I guess now the district is talking about like completely eliminating it in the middle, and high school teachers are a little bit like, wow, wait a minute.
I feel like that doesn't work for middle and high school.
Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna do? I have these kids for 45 minutes a day. Like, what do you do?
I think
Yeah,
maybe
you
limiting the amount of homework, because I have to say, like, I feel like especially in high school, it's like to spread myself way too thin.
Yes.
But like, I would go from a 6-hour day, go straight home and do all my homework, and I was so emotionally tired. I didn't put energy into that at all.
Yeah.
Homework still, I feel like it's still important just to be able to like practice what you're learning, but to an extent, not like hours.
I know. Well, then in correlation
Well,
with
like,
that, we're
let's be real. How many of those hours on end do you actually spend doing homework? Like, when I was in high school,
I think it's way more now than it ever has been before.
I don't know, because, okay, here's the thing. I worked in high school last year, at Scotland High School, and it's like, I've seen the homework that these kids get, and it's like 2 pages of homework. And maybe it's different because it's Bellingham. It's like, you're not getting that much homework. And they're like, it took me like 2 hours. I'm like, well, what were you doing while you're doing your homework? And they're like, well, I was watching TV, and I was texting my boyfriend, and I was like eating dinner, and it's like, okay, well, if you actually just sat down and did your homework,
Then
this
it
would
would
take
take,
you 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You just did this in class time in 15 minutes. Like, if you had done that at home last night, it would have taken you 4 hours, and you would have like actually got it done.
But at the same time, in my psychology class, we were talking about this, like, our bodies genetically are not designed to sit down and, like, it's a 2-hour lecture. They aren't designed to sit down and listen to a 2-hour lecture, like, which made me feel better about falling asleep in class. I was like, good, peace out, I'm gonna go to bed. But, like, it's not designed, so after a 6-hour day, like, that's all you do in high school. You just sit there and listen to the teacher. That's really all it is. And so after doing that and then going home and sitting
High school
down.
classrooms have changed a lot. That's not really what it is anymore, but yeah.
Oh, well,
I don't know. Like, any high school classroom I've been in lately, it's like,
What is it? Like,
you like, I mean, because I'm doing the secondary ed program,
Mhm.
so it's like, we are not taught to like sit and lecture. Like, you do not lecture to your students in high school. Like, that's not what you're supposed to do. And if you do that, like, you have a bad teacher.
Yeah.
But like, it's supposed to be like, so give
Interactive.
instruction,
Yeah.
and then they work together.
Yeah.
And then, like, it's interactive. It's not like me teaching. They're not supposed to sit there the whole time because kids can't do that. They don't sit there and listen for an hour. Like, that's not how it works. You're supposed to give them time to do their work and like formulate ideas and do things on their own. Like, you're just supposed to
Facilitate.
facilitate. Yeah.
Like my pre-calc class was like that. Like our teacher would like teach for like 30 minutes, like because we had the block, so we had an hour and a half. So she would like teach for 30 minutes, and then the last hour we would just like work in groups, like on like practice problems, like from like what she had taught, and then like extra time.
And you have extra time to do your homework. It's like, if you don't get it done in the 35 minutes that you get in class, then it's homework.
I think
But-
it also depends on like the timing, because we both had blocks, so it's 80 minutes, which is a lot better than cramming something into 45 minutes.
Then
It's-
you can do your homework in class.
Yeah.
The practice
with
in
your
class.
like group or partners, and then you also have time for the teacher to like teach you, not necessarily lecture, but
Yeah.
Which I think is part, we never had any blocks in high school.
yeah,
It
We
was
didn't
just,
either.
15 minutes.
it's just like
fast.
planned and
And then you're gonna end up with homework because there's no way the
Because you
teacher
can't
can cover it.
And
Yeah.
honestly, I wouldn't want to do my homework during class. I'd rather like actually get the lecture,
yeah,
you know, and actually learn something while I'm there. Because if not, the homework
because
always
then you're not gonna know
Yeah.
how to do the homework. Yeah,
I've like never had that because my junior high, well, I had like junior highs where I'm from, like 7 through 9. Those classes were 2 hours. Like I've like never had like a
my
short
freshman,
day.
I think my freshman and sophomore year, we had like 45 minutes, like 6 periods, 45 minutes, and then we changed to block schedule, and everyone was like, "Thank you." Like, even though sometimes it was too long with the teachers that did lecture like the whole time, but with the other classes, it was like a lot better.
We probably felt like at least then you have the teacher support if you needed it.
Yeah, and you have more time, but like more one-on-one time too, because like during the 45 minutes, they're just gonna teach till the whole class. If it's 80 minutes, then you have more time to like ask them questions.
Yeah, like individualized questions
Yeah.
about things. Yeah.
Yeah, there was my senior year, there was a math teacher who I got out of her class. She's a terrible teacher. Like, I've never seen so many of my friends fail. But she decided that she was going to switch it up and do she'd send home a video every single day, and you flipped like that, and people hated it. They're like, no, I want to be able to ask questions like during the lecture, during it, because by the time you get to class and it's 8 a.m., you're like, yeah, I don't really care anymore.
So what didn't you just watch a video?
You watch the lecture at home, and then you would do the homework during class.
That's kind of how Jennifer Green did her linguistics class. We'd watch videos and then we'd go to class and do activities.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was
I
great.
feel like it's
Like
like
as a
a
high schooler,
college
that's
student,
college
it's
is
better.
Yeah.
But like as a like our physics teacher did that in high school.
Oh, that's a hard subject.
Like
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't in the class, but I had several friends in the class, and like they like didn't go to class. They're like, okay, I don't get it. Like
Yeah.
he was an awful teacher. Like that's why he did the videos. Like
And she taught like high math, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but by the time you get to that, like, that's
Yeah.
hard.
It depends on the subject.
Yeah.
Math and like we have to do like calculations and things. I don't know how you could do that that way.
Yeah.
I don't know, I can see that like working for a math class. Because like you would give the lecture and you would, take notes on the lecture and then you would try to do the homework on your own and then you would come to class and be able to ask all the questions you want. Like, I don't know, because I am
just not
going to be a math teacher, like,
But then, yeah.
I just feel like you have to know your students to like see if that's gonna be like a good mode for them because like if you're in like lower level math class, like are the kids gonna watch the video? Like even the higher level math students,
like
like
for college
they're
class, I
in
would love that.
College,
Yeah, college
you
is
Like, I feel like in
way
high school, I
easier.
even would have loved that,
Yeah.
because you would, like, you can watch it, and then you can rewatch it as many
Yeah.
times as you want until you, like, understand what the teacher did.
Yeah.
You
Like,
could even
you have
watch
that
it after you went to
motivation.
class. So you have to have the motivation.
you have to have that motivation
Yeah.
to do it. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most high schoolers,
School
I wouldn't have in high school.
No,
I would
either.
have never done it.
Not to mention, like, during that, you have to sit down and watch the
Yeah,
video
so probably wouldn't
without
learn if
any
we did that class
distractions.
anyways. I just got A's in math without paying attention, I would have done it. But, like, it'd be like, I think, I would have liked it, but I really like math. So
You're good at
it's
math.
different. Yeah. I could not have done it for physics though.
No.
What? No. Well, physics is so like
Hands-on.
reliant on demonstration.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, you have to be
Like I
able
can
to see
remember
the stuff
my
happen.
teacher like lighting things on fire to like
Yes.
like
me too.
anytime we did a demonstration, like it didn't even have to be anything to do with fire. He would
Yeah.
just light everything on fire just because it like
It's
got
fun.
everyone's attention.
Yeah.
Like
Science
centrifugal
nerd.
force,
Yeah.
you put a bucket full of water and you like swing it around and the water stays in, like you swing it really fast. And then he did a bucket of gas and lit it on fire in the hallway.
gosh.
And then the bucket flew off the string and like fire went down the hallway.
Oh.
And it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
But like it had
Everybody
nothing to do
passed
with
that
fire,
test.
but it was like fire everywhere.
Yeah. Well, those are the teachers who remember that have
Exactly.
the demonstrations and the hands-on,
Yeah.
bring it, make it real life. Comprehensible input.
I remember I went back and was talking with one of my 7th grade science teachers like my senior year, like because I had to do like a in between like transition thing, and I was like still remembered her like purple dye with the water and like everything. And she's like, "You remember that?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, it was so cool.
Yeah, I know. That's nice when you get, I mean, as a teacher, it's so nice when kids come back and give you feedback like that. Like, oh, I remember this in
Yeah.
class. Because they don't really remember, they're not going to remember like, oh, I learned how to add fractions in 4th grade. They're going to remember like the crazy thing that you did or how you showed fractions or whatever. Yeah. The funny stories you tell.
Like 40.
Well, I can have a situation. I had a situation last night. So I live, so I live in this neighborhood. It's like a gated neighborhood, even though you can walk through it. It's really stupid. But it's like got all these old people in it. Like I'm talking like
Here?
over by Termeyer. I know nobody knows about it. I don't know. But anyway, they had this like
Wait, is this like the little old people's
probably
like trailer park?
No.
Oh, I was like,
That's
that's weird.
No, and so anyway, just all these old people with nothing to do, and so they have like we have HOA or whatever. I don't know. I've always just paid. My roommates are like, you know what have we been paying for at HOA? Like, let's go to this meeting. So they did their annual meeting, and we had our mailboxes broken into, which, granted, we all discovered. Well, our mailboxes are on the outside of the fence, pretty much saying like, come break into our mailboxes. It's really stupid, but. Anyway, and there's these apartments, and I know so many friends in these apartments, but there's a lot of Mexican people in these apartments, so they're, I don't know their but it's like on the Nevada Street. Yeah, and so in the meeting they're like, oh, well, there's been lots of mailboxes breaks in, and, I've talked to the police about those apartments and all this different stuff. And me and my roommates were like, oh no. And we all stood up, we're like, no, like, that's really not okay for you guys. Like, y'all are white and old. Like, I understand you guys are set in your ways and all, but we have a lot of there's a lot of college kids in that, especially in Nevada Street. Like, that's a lot of people. So, let's not make an assumption here. And there's been the police officer, by name, specifically said it's all over Bellingham, not just this neighborhood. But I was definitely like, oh, let me get my ELL facts for you. I had to yell at them. I was like,
Oh my god.
So, yeah, it was really interesting.
That's awesome. You guys did that though. I'd be like I get so scared in situations like that. Like,
I would have probably
I don't
just been like laughing,
confrontation.
like you guys are all idiots.
Yeah. I don't know. And it was just really interesting how they were like, they just kept all upset over these little things, and we're just like, okay, chill out, people. Like, there's
That's
bigger
what
things in the
like
world.
that generation does.
Yeah,
They just
that
blame the people who are different.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it must be that they're all criminals.
Grandma calls them those Mexicans.
Yeah.
Like, Grandma, you can't do that. She's like, those Mexicans came to work in my garden yesterday.
Yeah, well, they're like not even saying it in like a negative way,
It's
really.
just all they
It's
know.
just
They
all
just
they
say it.
know.
And I'm like, Grandma,
My mom
no.
says Orientals still.
Oh my gosh.
Nope, that's not what you say.
No.
anymore.
Yeah. No, we're not
Nope,
on that
not
time.
okay.
She still does it, no matter how many times I correct her, because it's just so
It's just-
in her brain,
yeah.
That's what she said for years.
I thought it was really interesting. I'm like, you guys, we live in Bellingham. Like, we have a huge Hispanic
Yeah,
population.
seriously.
Like, chill out a little bit, okay? They're not all coming for you.
Yeah.
I promise.
Yeah. You'd be surprised though, like Bellingham is, the longer I live here, the more you realize how like we pride ourselves on being so diverse, and we're this like laid back community, and we accept everyone, and we're hippies, and we're super liberal, and then when it comes down to it, it's like, but you don't
like
really
the-
practice
act
what
on
you
it.
preach.
Yeah.
Like you still blue slip your kid into a school because you don't like your neighborhood school, or things like that.
Mhm.
It's just interesting how people, I don't know,
Yeah.
the attitudes that people have. They don't even realize that they have those attitudes.
Yeah.
They don't even realize
It's like
how.
a subconscious
Yeah,
mindset.
like even, a girl that I work with, she used to live in the Sunnyland neighborhood, and that's where my husband teaches, and that school's awesome, and that neighborhood's awesome, and she would talk about how there's all these bad kids running around in her neighborhood, and she didn't want her kid to go to Sunnyland, and it's like, you live in Bellingham,
Yeah.
there's no bad parts of
Yeah.
town, like,
No.
there's
There's
no
like a few
ghetto
kids that are
or,
Yeah.
but not compared
not
to
like-
like,
not
there's not like
Seattle.
drive-by
Yeah.
shootings or,
Right.
yeah, I don't know, people are silly.